now.
Hello and welcome everyone. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to make sure who's joining today can finish logging into this call. I think we're ready to go now. Welcome to this East West Railway Company online public event for Bletchley in the Marston Vale line. My name is Claire Keith Anderson and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at East West Railway Company. Following the launch of the second round of non-statutory consultation on the 31st of March, this week we're holding the first online events to run you through what we are consulting on in your area in more detail and address any initial questions you may have about our options and proposals. We are holding similar sessions across the whole route between Oxford and Cambridge throughout this week. We'll start this session with a presentation that will run for around 30 minutes, followed by a 25 to 30 minute question and answer session before we wrap up with some next steps. We should be done by the hour. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to the rest of the team. Joining us today, we also have our Delivery Director for CS2, John Hillman, our Director of Construction, John Worthington, our Head of Environmental Impact, Michael Shanks, our Head of Customer Strategy, Martin Phillips, our Head of Operations, Maria Cliff, our Head of Programme Contents, Kirsty Young, and Martin Wheeler, DCO Director at Ardent, who work with us on land matters. We've also got Tom Parish and James McCollum working with us today. Before we start the presentation, I'm going to run through a brief housekeeping and Teams Live note. Many of you might be familiar with Teams Live, but just as a reminder, you'll be on mute throughout. You'll find in the bar below the Q&A feature, where my colleague has just posted a message, please use this feature to ask questions. You can send questions through at any time during the presentation, although we hope the slides already address some of your inquiries. In the Q&A session, we will aim to address the questions you've got so far on the consultation. Any questions that we're not able to answer or address during the session, we'll take away and follow up via email afterwards. Please note that we are recording these sessions and therefore will not reference any names or descriptions directly, even if provided in the question for GDPR purposes. That's all the housekeeping we have. So if we start with the presentation. So welcome to EWR, our non-statutory public consultation, which launched on the 31st of March and will end on the 9th of June. Next slide, please. So what will we cover today? So we're going to have an introduction to the consultation. We're going to look at what we're consulting on. We're going to have a Q&A session. We're going to look at how you can get involved and then the next steps. Next slide, please. So what are we consulting on? This is a 10-week consultation and it's an opportunity for you to share your thoughts on emerging proposals for East West Rail and your views on the broader scheme. The consultation document, which many of you will have received by now, the summary, which was posted to you, covers the following key sections: customer experience in railway operations and proposed infrastructure development for Oxford to Bicester, Bletchley in the Marston Vale line, which we're looking at this evening, Bedford, Clapham Green to the Ebersdons, Halton to Hawkston, and the Shelfords to Cambridge Station. Next slide, please. So this is the first time we're consulting on the entire route from Oxford all the way through to Cambridge. And this map shows you the position and the extent of our consultation zone. Next slide, please. And so this map actually shows the 6 different geographic areas that we're consulting on during this 2021 consultation. So we have here Oxford to Bicester. The green square shows our section that we're looking at this evening, Bletchley to Marston Vale line. We're going to be consulting on proposals in Bedford, and then from Clapham Green to the Eversdons, Harlton to Hawkston, and then over here in Cambridge. Next slide, please. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Martin Phillips.
Good evening. So I just want to cover the part of the consultation document that covers customer experience and railway operations. So this part of our consultation is focusing on what the customers want from their railway experience, and it's really important that we hear your views. So what are we consulting on? Next slide, please. Thank you. So we're developing our initial thoughts on what a customer experience will be on a whole journey basis. So we're considering the different elements that make up that overall experience. So in the consultation document, there's some sections around the actual train service itself. There's a section and questions around the station's experience and what facilities, etc., what the experience that customers would like. There's a section on the on-train experience, and really importantly, what interactions customers would like with colleagues. And another really key part of the customer experience journey is the customer information, how that is supplied. So all of this you'll see in the consultation document, and I'll hand over to John Hillman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So good evening all. My name is John Hillman. I'm the CS2 Delivery Director for East West Rail, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through the options for the Marston Vale line. So we're talking tonight on Bletchley all the way through to Bedford. And what does that mean? Well, we're creating, as Martin outlined earlier, we're creating a customer experience and a rail journey all the way from Oxford through to Cambridge, and it is the first time we've consulted on the complete journey. But obviously the Oxford to Bletchley piece of the railway is being upgraded currently, and we are also proposing to upgrade Bedford and build some new railway between Bedford and just outside Cambridge. But there is a crucial piece that's in the middle between Bedford and Bletchley that's an existing rail line today. It does have a rail service on it, and it's known as the Marston Vale line. It's also a community rail line, so there's quite a lot of active involvement in that route. But the reality is, in order to deliver the services and the reliability and the journey times between Oxford and Cambridge, we need to upgrade the route between Bletchley and Bedford. And it's not just about a few coats of paint here and there, a little bit of tinkering. It really is probably an opportunity once in a lifetime to upgrade that piece of railway for something that's going to be available and suit the communities along that route for the next 100 years. So it is a great opportunity, but we're also conscious it has a place to play in today's community. So whilst we're looking forward, we also need to bear in mind what people use it for today and ensure that we fulfill both the future need and today's need. So what are we looking at between Bletchley and Bedford? Well, we're likely to upgrade the railway tracks from 1 to 2 in the Fenny Stratford area, where there's currently 1 line at the bottom left of the map there. We're also looking at level crossings along the route, and we're also looking at stations along the route in order to accommodate the additional services and the improvements. Next slide, please. So what does it mean? What are we proposing to do? Well, the Marston Vale line has a few problems. It's got an unreliable signalling system that's led to suspension of services and various other problems recently. We also know that the infrastructure is dated and it's particularly slow in the services that operate along the route today. So the current local service travelling between Bedford and Bletchley takes around about 42 minutes, and it's 16 miles from one end to the other. So it's an average speed of 25 miles an hour calling all of the stations. The photograph there is typical of a lot of the stations along the route. It's relatively constrained in size. It's got a bus shelter, a platform, information, and not a lot else. And there's not a lot that you can actually do to improve some of these areas because they are so constrained. They're all unstaffed, so the facilities on offer to passengers is quite limited. And equally, we must remember that as things stand today, the usage on some of these stations is particularly low, with less than 40 passengers a day at some of them, and 4 of these stations actually rank in the bottom 10% of station usage across the UK. So what are we going to do? Next slide, please. So I want to run through 2 concepts that we've developed for the Marston Vale line, and the map shows you all of the current stations along the route between Bletchley and Bedford. And we're going to share 2 concepts with you today. Concept 1 is about East West Rail introducing a faster service, so a service between Oxford, Bedford and Cambridge that we call it Woburn, Sands and Ridgemont, and that would be in addition to the current service, which calls once an hour at all of those stops that you can see on the map. The East West Rail service would be in effect 4 trains an hour that would call at Woburn, Sands, Ridgemont, but the existing service would call at all of the others. So in essence, the improvement in services, the improvement in the stations in concept 1 would be limited to Woburn, Sands and Ridgemont. We would also be doing some work at Fenny Stratford to add a second platform, and we would also be relocating Bedford St John's, because in order to get into Bedford we need to move the railway to get the speed through Bedford St John's to a faster speed limit. Concept 2 is slightly different. And what we're suggesting in concept 2 is that instead of 10 stations, as you can see there on the map, we would consolidate those into 5 new stations along the route. What would that mean? Well, we would take away the local service as it exists today, and we would introduce the East West Rail services. 2 of those would call at all 5 stations in the hour, and 2 of them would call at Woburn, Sands and Ridgemont. So you would have faster services between Bicester and Bedford, Bletchley and Bedford, which would be in the region of 22 minutes for the fast service or 27 minutes for the all stations 5 station service. Next slide, please. So I'll just explain these in a bit more detail. So taking concept 1, if you look at the diagram in the middle, you'll see the light blue is the existing local service calling all stations, and then the dark blue lines are the East West Rail services that would then call at Woburn, Sands and Ridgemont in concept 1. So that would mean up to 5 trains an hour in each direction using the route. The journey time for the local service is likely to take a little bit longer than it does today, and that's around the complexities of having to interface the fast services with the local service. In other words, the local service will have to get to Ridgemont and it will have to wait for a fast service to pass it. So what you would end up with is Woburn, Sands and Ridgemont would end up with 5 trains an hour. Everywhere else would retain what it has today in respect of an hourly stopping service. The East West Rail services would take 22 minutes or thereabouts between Bletchley and Bedford, and the existing service would take around what it does today at 42 minutes. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for the communities along the line? Well, as I've said, it would mean that East West Rail calls at Woburn Sands and Ridgemont, so it's shown on the map there. All the other stations would very much remain as they are, apart from Bedford St John's, which would be slightly relocated in order to allow track work to take place to raise the speed. Most station facilities other than Woburn Sands and Ridgemont would remain as they are today. Most of them are very constrained sites, so they'd remain unstaffed and remain constrained. They can't easily be expanded to improve accessibility, and it would also possibly mean that if we've got limited East West Rail fast services from Woburn Sands and Ridgemont, that actually we might see an increase of traffic to those locations because of the increased service, and therefore we're very conscious of people parking cars at stations where there are no car parks, so leaving their cars in the community, so to speak. Next slide, please. So what does concept 2 look like? Well, as explained earlier, it would mean 5 new stations. So Woburn Sands relocated, Ridgemont relocated, stations in the areas of Lidlington and Stuartby relocated from where they are today, and a Bedford St John's relocated. Those would be the 5 stations between Bletchley and Bedford. It would mean 2 services an hour would call at all 5 of those stations, and 2 services an hour would call at Woburn Sands and Ridgemont. So from the 5 stations, you would have direct services to and from Cambridge twice an hour. And then for Woburn Sands and Ridgemont, you would also have direct services to Cambridge and Oxford. It does give the opportunity for people in between Ridgemont and Bedford to change at Ridgemont onto direct services to and from Oxford. It does mean that from these locations, more people would have access to more frequent services to longer destinations. Next slide, please. So what does this look like on a map? Well, that's the 5 stations in areas that are relocated. We are open to suggestions from people about where these stations should be, and we've included details within the consultation that identifies areas for the station. None of them are actually identified to a specific location at this point in time, so we are quite happy for people to make representations about where they should be. So more communities with more access to longer distance locations. The journey time for the fast services would be 22 minutes between Bletchley and Bedford, and the all stops would probably take around 27 minutes because it's calling at 5 and not 2 of the stations. All journeys on the route today would be quicker without the need to change trains. We do believe that this concept would be more reliable because there's no need for the trains to overtake and for the fast services to pass the local service, which you've got in concept 1. And also these 5 new stations would be brand new stations with modern passenger facilities, and equally they would in all likelihood have car parking available and sustainable transport options, including cycle facilities, etc., etc. So we do believe it would be far better that people using these services would park at the station and not dispense themselves into villages or local communities with their cars. Next slide, please. So the other area that we're tackling on the Marston Vale line, we currently have 31 level crossings, and we are aware that level crossings provide a key means of connectivity in and around communities. But we're also, when we talk about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to improve the Marston Vale line, we are talking about significant changes in infrastructure. We're talking about line speeds that raise from 60 miles an hour today, excuse me, to somewhere closer to 100 miles an hour. We're going from 1 local service an hour in each direction to potentially 5 or 4 services in each direction. And that means that the level crossings that we've got today need to be reassessed from a safety perspective and a user perspective. The crossings that we've got have many different types of activity taking place. We've got highways, as you'll see from the photograph there, There are also bridleways, there are user-operated crossings, and there are footpaths. Next slide, please. So out of the 31 level crossings that exist today, under the previous Transport Works Act, Network Rail gained permission to close 11 of those 31 crossings, and that was for the introduction of the hourly Oxford to Bedford service. And we are aware that Network Rail have closed 3 further crossings along the line using those powers to date. As we increase the number of trains and as we increase the speed, we need to ensure that these level crossings are safe and equally they're reliable, both for users of road and rail. Next slide, please. So we're evaluating the crossings at the moment, and there is a key consideration for us, and that is that the railway recognises that crossings are a key safety risk because of the interface with users. The Office of Road and Rail, their guidance at the moment is that if possible you close level crossings to remove that risk. So we are looking at what we do in respect of level crossings. Our initial position is we're looking to close them all, but we will be evaluating them as we go through. And if you look in the consultation document, you'll see that we have proposed ideas and thoughts and options around each of the level crossings along the route and what we may do in respect of closing them and what the alternatives are. Next slide, please. And just to give some context to how many level crossings along the route, just over 16 miles between Bletchley and Bedford. Each one of the little circles with a blue cross in it is a crossing. So as you can see, it's quite a complex railway line in respect of level crossings of one type or another. What would that mean if we were to close these? Well, early initial thoughts, as outlined in the consultation, show that we probably provide something between 16 and 19 new bridges along that route of one form or another. Our aim is to ensure that we retain convenience for users of the local rights of way and for the communities. Obviously improve safety both from a road and user perspective for the crossings and equally the railway. And it would also mean that the railway is much more reliable because you don't get equipment failures and you don't get incidents involving level crossings. Next slide, please. So thank you for listening. I'm going to pass over to Kirsty now, who's going to talk to you with information about landowners. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Kirsty Young. I'm the head of programme consents for East West Rail Co, and I'm the lead for the land and property team within East West Rail Co, and also our specialist advisors that we have at Ardent. I just really wanted to just sort of run through a slide here just to give a little bit of context about how we're engaging with landowners from now and through the course of the project. One of our key roles really as the land and property team is to talk to landowners and to understand how our proposals are going to affect them and look to support people through the process that we are going through as we develop our designs. And we know that for both the new railway but also for our improvements to the existing railway and potentially in a number of areas we will require new land in order to do that. And through the development consent order, we would seek compulsory purchase powers to acquire that land. Now, like all development consent orders, really, that needs to be a last resort. So we will look to use those CO powers as a last resort and look to talk to and then with landowners to try to seek agreements for the land that we need. The designs that we've got at the moment are at an early stage, as John was setting out. So we haven't fully defined our land requirements yet, but we want to start discussing proposals with potentially affected landowners at the point that we're at the moment, so that we can, one, help them really feed into the consultation and understand what some of our options and proposals mean, and so allow us to start discussions on mitigation and sort of minimising impacts as we go through the process. The development consent order, we would look to probably run through that actual application process between 2022 to 2024, so it's still some time away. So really now it's about these early discussions with people to sort of understand the land and the land use, and continue those discussions going through another round of consultation for statutory consultation that we'll have ahead of the DCO application, and then ongoing discussions with landowners through the application themselves, and obviously the planning the consent order for us. We do recognise, as well as the sort of people's worries about potential future impact, there can also be an impact just by publishing plan infrastructure project like ourselves, where we're identifying potential for future land requirements. And if people are in a position where they are, an owner occupier in a residential sort of house or a small business, and they're needing to sell their property, they may be concerned basically of the impact that our proposals will have. Now, there is legal remedies which kind of come in later on in the process. So from when the development consent or application is made, there's a legal process so people can serve what's known as statutory blight. And on our land and property page, connect from our consultation page, there's a bit more information about that for anybody that feels that would be relevant for them. But that is quite late in the process, and we recognise that. So we're currently consulting on a discretionary purchase need to sell scheme, which is really aimed to sort of help landowners who may be in that position at an earlier stage, and have a need to sell. For example, they may need to move for a new job sort of thing, or another life change which may sort of affect them, and if they were unable to sell because of the market value of our scheme, that would have an impact upon them, so a severe impact upon them. So we are consulting on a scheme to try and help that, and that is available as well for consultation on our land and property page. The consultation will be running for the same time as this main consultation, so it will run until the 9th of June. So I would encourage anybody to have a look at that material, and to feed in your views on both the need to sell scheme, but also potentially sort of other support that you may feel that you as a property owner as well, you'll be able to feed that in there. We are starting discussions with landowners that maybe physically affected by the proposals that we're putting forward. For example, for the new bridge, our options at the moment, they are very broad search areas. We want to start the early discussions with landowners. So we do have a dedicated team in place with myself and with specialist support from our company, Ardent, who are quite experienced in working these type of matters of compulsory purchase and supporting landowners through that process. So we've written to those landowners that may be affected, inviting them to a one-to-one meeting at the moment so they can discuss our proposals with the team, and ask any questions, raise any concerns, sort of agree maybe how we might be on this, but we go through the process. So if you have received a letter, I'd encourage you to contact us on our dedicated phone number or via the email address, and we would like to start discussing that with you. The last thing I would just say is that we do have the land and property webpage, and there is quite a lot more information on there, just on more general information about compulsory purchase, about other sort of compensation and things that are potentially available to people. So please do avail yourself of that. Come to us if you've got any particular questions on any of it. So I will now hand back over to Claire to continue telling you about the consultation.
Thanks very much, Kirsty. So we are running through the consultation for each geographical section 2 meeting sessions. So today, this is a session to run you through the elements we will be consulting you on, which are relevant to you. And then in May, I don't know if you've looked at our website on the consultation page, but we've got a second set of webinars, and these are for a more discursive discussion, and we'll be looking at themes which will be of probably very great interest to you, like environmental impact assessment, like the impact of construction. So we'd encourage you to come along to the session in May. Also, we have, again, if you've looked on our website, we've got a lengthy consultation document. And I've already mentioned a consultation summary document, which has been sent to over 2,700 households, sorry, 270,000 households in the consultation zone. There's also the technical report. We have a community hub and resource centre, and I don't know if you've looked on our website, but our virtual consultation room is now live, and we have a virtual consultation room for each geographic section of the consultation. Next slide, please. So there are lots of different ways that you can get involved, and really we have put out a lot of information and we really want to hear from you. We want to get your responses to the consultation. We want to answer your questions. So please do get in touch with us. And thank you for coming along this evening. So as I just mentioned, our virtual consultation rooms will be open they opened yesterday and they'll be open until the 9th of June. And they are full of information. Because we're not able to see you face to face because of the pandemic, the consultation room is a really good place which will provide you with more information on each section of the consultation, including a full list of documents and maps available via the central table. As I've mentioned, we're holding online public events, and there are going to be 12 of these for the geographic sections of the alignment from Oxford to Cambridge. And also there are going to be 2 sessions on customer experience and railway operations. Again, please look at our website on the consultation page, and all the dates are on there, and the instructions how to join the webinars. We're also holding live chat events. Now we're holding 10 of these, and they're for 2 hours each, and basically it's your opportunity to chat to a member of the project team. So it's all done through the computer. So similarly to this evening, you'll put a question into the chat bar, and then there'll be a member of our team answering you. So really encourage you to come along to any of these live chat sessions, and you can find the live chat function in our virtual consultation room. If it's shut when you go into the virtual consultation room, you can still leave your question in the live chat function and we will get back to you. We also have a dedicated phone line because we know that not everybody is online and not everybody is comfortable in the digital environment. So we encourage those people who don't wish to engage with us electronically to please pick up the phone and give us a call, and we'll be pleased to hear from you and pleased to help you. Next slide, please. So we've come to the part of the meeting where we would like to answer your questions. So I'll hand over to James McCollum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire, and good evening, everyone. I've been monitoring the Q&A function and the questions that you've been submitting, so thank you very much for those. We've had a number of questions in on various themes, which we'll tackle theme by theme. The first is around what John described as the opportunity of a lifetime, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to improve the railway. And one of the questions was, if it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, then why is it not serving Milton Keynes directly? I'd like to invite Maria Cliff from East West Railway Company to respond to that.
Thanks, James. So a very good question, and I think worth elaborating slightly that we are, of course, introducing services in 3 stages. Our initial services will be operating between Oxford and Milton Keynes, and then the service itself will be extended through to Bedford. and then further on into Cambridge for our connection stage 3. One of the challenges and the main constraint with potentially running a service through to Milton Keynes from the Marston Vale line is the capacity on the West Coast main line, which is the main line up to Milton Keynes that runs north to south. But I should say that one of the things we're undertaking at the moment is a detailed timetabling exercise, which will allow us to understand how we can pursue potential options such as the one suggested through to Milton Keynes. And I would encourage anybody with any suggestions about service patterns that they're keen to see us explore to include that in their consultation response. And just finally from me, Bletchley Station and the upgrades that we plan to introduce at Bletchley allows us to showcase Bletchley as a hub for East West Rail and a hub for the community. And so providing the connectivity at Bletchley itself up to Milton Keynes and of course down to the south of the country is really important. And so as part of the timetable exercise, we're making sure that those connections north-south are considered and are a really key part of the customer experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Moving on to another theme that's come through in the questions is level crossings, which I know, John, you touched upon in the presentation. So if it's okay, it'd be good to get you to respond to these ones. The first question is, what traffic modelling work is being undertaken to evaluate the impact of the currently proposed changes to level crossings? And if these haven't started yet, when will this be done and when will the results be made available? And then the second question on level crossings is, will East West Railway Company be improving road access so people who need to use a bridge can get to it? I don't know which one of those you want to take first.
Okay, thanks, James. So to respond to those two specifically, yes, we are going to undertake traffic modelling. It is a requirement for our options that we're developing for level crossing closures. We are about to start work on most of that, and we're talking with local authorities at this present time around the transport models that we're going to use. When will it be available? Well, it will form part of our statutory consultation and DCO evidence along with our option selection. So it will form part of the evidence base for both of those activities. In respect to road access, where we're proposing an overbridge or an underbridge, for example, then obviously the traffic modelling and the scheme design will clearly have an highways element in order to provide access to and from the new bridge that we design and propose. So we'll be working with the local authorities closely on that and the highways to ensure that the options that we select are taken forward into the statutory consultation for people to see.
Thank you very much, John. And then a question has come in about something you mentioned, John, in the presentation about twin tracking. And the question was, how much of this section is twin tracked? And if not all of it, then why not?
Okay, so the Marston Vale currently is twin tracked, the majority of it. It's an island of twin tracks, if you like. The piece at the Bletchley end between Fenny, Stratford and Bletchley is a single track. It was singled at some time in the past, and a bridge over the A5 which was constructed to be single track as well. And then at the Bedford St John's end, it's single track, and it's Bedford St John's station itself is on a very short straight piece of railway that's got some significant curvature at either end. That means that the speed for the railway is restricted to 15 miles an hour. So our proposals are looking to make both of those single line sections into double track, and in actual fact, in order to run the timetable reliably with the service numbers that we are talking about in the hour, then you would need double track at both ends anyway. So it is our intention that in the proposals and the consultation, you'll see that we talk about doubling the track at both ends. There's another couple of questions I'll pick up while I'm talking, if that's okay, James. So there's a question about merged stations and DCO. We will be including the merged stations potential station closure process within the DCO. So if people want to comment on station locations, on facts about station closure, or where they'd like to see stations or what they'd like to see in its place, then do comment as part of the DCO. We won't be going out with a separate process, so it will be included within the DCO. There's another question on cost capital difference between concept 1 and concept 2. So in order to answer that, what I would say at the moment is we're still working, because those concepts are quite high level, we're still working through the detail, and we will carry out a full detailed costing exercise as part of the next stage of the consultation. But basically, both of those concepts, because they have very different elements of infrastructure in, they are probably in the range of being cost neutral between each other. But we need to do further work within the detail and within the options to get to a place where we fully understand what the numbers look like going forward. Thanks, James.
Thank you very much, John. That's great. We've got a couple of questions around communications, and I think Claire, it'd be good to get you to answer if possible. One is a question around paper copies of some of the consultation materials. We've had a question in saying, I submitted a request for paper copies of the consultation document and have not received them yet. Have documents been sent out yet?
Okay, thanks, James. So the summary document has been sent out to, as I said, to over 270,000 people who live within the consultation zone. But you can actually order paper copies of the documents off our website, and we aim to get them out within 48 hours. If you haven't got them, please do put your email into the chat bar, put copies, paper copies next to that email address, and then I can chase it up. So I apologise if you haven't got them, but it really shouldn't take more than 48 hours from when you order them on the website to receive them. But as I say, please, if you haven't got hard copies and you've ordered them, leave your email address in the chat bar and I'll follow it up and make sure that we send them to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. And while you're on, there's been a question with regard to the consultation zone. I know at the very beginning of the presentation you put up a map on it. I don't know whether the question came in from someone who might have joined late, but I wonder if it's worth getting that slide back up. I don't know, but the question that's come in says, could you expand on the area to which information has been distributed to 270,000 households?
Okay, so thank you very much. So this is the consultation zone going from Oxford to Cambridge, and basically we send the summary document to people, households who live within a 2 kilometre buffer of the alignment. Also, parish councils will be sent hard copies of the information, the summary document, the consultation document, the technical report, you said we did report, and large maps, a feedback form and a response form. So if you speak to your parish council, they will have large maps that you can look at. So and also we've advertised the consultation and on the media. We sent out a mail list to something like 4,500 people on our newsletter subscriber list, and to we sent it out also to our community stakeholders. We've really sent out a lot of information to a lot of people, because really we want to hear from you. And already actually we've had quite a few responses to the consultation already. We've had lots of hits in the people visiting the consultation room and our website, and it's great. It's really generating a lot of interest, and we're getting a lot of questions coming through, which is really great. I hope that's answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. We've had another couple of questions in specifically about the concepts 1 and 2. So John, I'd invite you to come back and answer those if that's okay. The first question is, how were the 5 proposed stations decided under concept 2? And the second is, can you confirm that Ridgemont Station would be relocated under both options?
Thanks, James. Yeah, so I can confirm Ridgemont would be relocated under both options. In option 1, Ridgemont requires to be relocated and some passing loops provided. That's where the local service would be passed by the fast trains. So Ridgemont Station would probably have 4 platforms in order for that to be able to work properly. And in respect of the 5 proposed station locations, it's a mix of things. There is the future housing growth plans that are in place with local authorities, and also there is the defining how you maximise the use of the current or the proposed stations across the route in order to serve the communities in the best way possible, whilst also taking advantage or reflecting on the new developments and the future plans for communities that are in place. So what I said earlier was that we're quite happy to take feedback and to take views on where, if you don't think we've got the location quite right, where you think they ought to be, or give us thoughts and ideas in that space. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that, John. We've also had a question about current Marston Vale line services, and have we factored in passenger journey data? So the question goes, passenger journey data shows Marston Vale line journeys reached a 10-year high in 2018 to 2019, and we're on course to exceed this in 2019-2020 until the intervention of COVID-19. So the question is, have you factored in passenger journey data?
Yeah, so absolutely. So our data is based on that published by the ORR, or the Office of Rail and Road, and it does reflect the growth that's been alluded to there. We recognise the work that the Community Rail Partnership and the current operator had been doing to raise that growth along the Marston Vale. But as I said, the data is based on that published by the ORR.
Thanks very much, John. And we've had a follow-up question to your previous response around the concept 1 and concept 2 being likely to be cost neutral, and wonder if there's any way to elaborate on this if possible. The person who's asked the question has said that concept 2 involves 5 brand new stations, whereas concept 1 involves 2 revamped stations and 1 new Bedford St John's. So how would that result in being cost neutral?
Okay, thanks, James. So in option 2, you're right, there are 5 brand new stations. One of those is Bedford St John's, so that is a new station in both concepts. In concept 2, Ridgemont is a 2-platform station without passing loops. In concept 1, Ridgemont is a 4-platform station including passing loops. Now, when I say passing loops, they could be passing loops of a length up to 800, 900, 1,000 meters in length. So they are significant infrastructure interventions with a significant cost, including land. So overall, when you take the 2 concepts at face value, we believe they're in the range of being cost neutral. Now, we've got to work that up into the option selection in order to take it into the next stage of consultation. And as part of that, we'll need to do much more detailed evaluation of those costs. So these are high-level assumptions, high-level concepts at the moment. And as we all know, there's always an element of error or bias has to be applied at this point in time till we get into the detail.
Thank you, John. We've had a question in about sustainable travel to the new stations, which was mentioned, and how much thought on what form this would take, i.e. not just bike hire and places to park bikes, but also integration with wider transport networks like bus services, new cycle infrastructure connecting to villages and so on. I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Yes, certainly. So there's active work going on at the moment with England's Economic Heartland, who are doing a study on first mile, last mile, which is what the connectivity between the first and last mile people's houses to stations is all about. So we're actively involved in that with them. We're also starting to undertake some work on what that first mile, last mile would look like for stations on the Marston Vale. Bear in mind that if we were to relocate Concept 2, then obviously we're able much more to influence what that looks like. With Concept 1, we're only going to be interfacing with Woburn, Sands and Ridgemont. We are actively engaged with the local authorities around discussions, and we'll be laying out more thoughts and plans in the actual statutory consultation around what options we can provide and how they interface with the station. So it's early days, but the work is planned to start, and we will be looking to see how we can influence that.
Thanks very much, John. I'm conscious of time. There are a couple of key themes that have come through in the questions that I'm still keen to cover if possible. One is on freight. We've had a question of, is this going to be a passenger line or a freight line? And on the topic of freight, someone also mentioned passing loops, and have we considered passing loops as part of the approach to freight trains?
Okay, so the undertaking that we are providing in upgrading the line is that we will continue to provide the freight capacity that exists today, which is 5 freight paths a day. That doesn't mean 5 freight trains, that means 5 freight paths are provided for currently. And freight is provided via open access by freight operators using the paths as they exist, as and when they wish to do so. So we will continue within all of the planning and the delivery. We will continue to ensure that those 5 freight paths are provided. There is a section in the consultation document on the wider freight question. We are also working on a freight strategy, and that is looking further forward because there is the engagement with the industry has suggested that there is further freight requirements in the future. But our initial work that we're undertaking, as I said, is to continue to provide what exists today.
Thank you, John. And then we've had some questions about specific locations along the Marston Vale line. If we could start with Ridgemont. One question is, where will the new signalling control centre be that presumably will replace the existing arrangements at Ridgemont? And noting that Ridgemont was one of the final schemes implemented under rail track. And then a second point came in about, are you aware that Ridgemont Station is the home of a multi-award winning heritage centre to which visitors travel from all over the country? And then thirdly, it's been mentioned that Ridgemont in particular is home to Red Bull Racing and many new business parks and commerce. Bow Brick Hill rather, and that it seems odd that Bow Brick Hill has been left out of the Woburn and Ridgemont, bearing in mind it's home to Red Bull Racing and many new business parks and commerce. So I don't know whether there's any specific points on that or signposts to any areas of the consultation materials that might be helpful.
James, I can take the signalling question if that's helpful in terms of the control centre. So the answer is we don't know yet. It's one of the pieces of work that we are undertaking in terms of looking at the entire route Oxford to Cambridge. We know where the route is going to be signalled and controlled from for our connection stage 1 because that's already in place, Network Rail. But one of the questions that we need to answer before the statutory consultation is published is where our long-term control centre will be. And there is opportunities in terms of creating jobs in the local area if we were to consider a new site somewhere, or utilising some existing infrastructure somewhere along the route.
Thank you very much, Maria. And John, I don't suppose you're able to take up some of the questions around the stations?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Maria. So Ridgemont Station, yes, we are very aware that it is a heritage location with a listed station building. We are planning to relocate Ridgemont Station in both concepts. We're also planning to do some work to understand what the stations that are left behind, how we incorporate them into wider community use, or how we keep them within the railway family in some way. And it will be part of the next stage of the work that we commence to understand how we do that. We'll be engaging with local authorities, we'll be engaging with communities about how we do that. And it isn't just Ridgemont. There are a number of stations along the route. If you took Concept 2, some of the little stations that are basically just a platform and a bus shelter. The reality is that we won't be able to return that space to a community, because basically they're just stuck on the edge of the track, and in reality they would probably just be taken away. But where the opportunity exists, we're definitely going to be seeking a solution or an opportunity or options or ideas for how we, as I said, for how we can take that into a wider community engagement space in one form or another, as part of the options and the plans. Thanks, James.
Thanks, John. I'm conscious of time, so we'll move to wrap up. There's just one final theme that's come through loud and clear, and Claire, as you'll be picking up the next slide, I just wonder if you could pick this one up as well, which is about maps. And the maps in the online consultation documents are fairly low resolution. Are larger versions without text boxes obscuring them available, please? And then there's been other questions on maps around when can we publish maps and diagrams that clearly name villages and communities, so people can give meaningful consideration to different options. And I suspect the interactive maps on the website is part of the solution to that. But I just wonder if you could pick up those as you then finish off.
Of course, I will do. Thanks, James. So yes, very good questions around maps. We, as James had said, we do have interactive maps on the website, so you should be able to drill down at quite a good scale and see your village, your town. So, but also, as I mentioned before, your local parish council will have large maps. So I think, because normally if you were meeting at in a town hall, we would have large maps and we could show you where you live in relation to the alignment. But as I say, we chose to send large maps to your parish council. So do get in contact with your parish council. And you can also contact us at contact@eastwestrail.co.uk and request a copy of a map. But I don't think, obviously, we sent the really large ones out to the parish council, so we can probably provide you with larger ones, but not the very, very big ones, basically because of expense. But I want to say thank you very, very much, everybody, for coming along this evening. We are really sorry that we can't be with you in person. We all know why. We encourage you to come along to the next meeting for Bletchley and the Marston Vale line. We encourage you to visit our website, and there's so much information out there regarding consultation. Please take time to read it. Please do get in contact with us with your questions. We've got our email address, contact at us. Thank you. I was going to say next slide. Thank you. You can send us your feedback form at Freepost East West Rail. You can request a paper copy of the form to be sent to you at contact@eastwestrail.co.uk, or call us on 030-134-0067. So we've got, as I said, we've had quite a few responses to the consultation already. We want to hear from you, so please do respond, read the information. If you've got questions. We've talked about the different ways you can get in contact with us, and we will get back to you. And please make sure you respond to us by the 9th of June, as that is the closing date for the consultation. And basically, what's next? We would like to hear from you, but we hope to see you at further events. And again, thank you very much for coming this evening. And I think we're just about on time, so I'd say good evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much, and goodbye.